I used to drink in a bar where there were Basque people who wanted independence from the Basque country, and they were very against being run from Madrid, from the newly restored Cortes. But they were fascists. They thought that Franco was wonderful. The only problem was that he was Spanish and not Basque. You see, they wanted a sort of Basque Franco. Yeah, that's what they wanted.
This is Common Sense Generation. Common Sense Generation. Welcome all of you. My name is Kądzielska-Koper and you're watching Common Sense Generation. With me is Professor Stephen Priest from Blackfriars College in Oxford. Professor, thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
Well, you are a philosopher and you do it professionally in Oxford. Before we go to talking about philosophy, tell us your personal story. How did it happen?
Oh, all right. Well, I was born in Oxford in 1954, and I lived in Surrey and then in Cheshire in my young life. And I did my first degree in England in history, French and archaeology. So I did not study philosophy to begin with. And when I finished that degree, on and off, I spent 10 years doing archaeology, all right? Part-time archaeology, excavating Roman and Celtic sites in the north of England, in Cambridgeshire and in France. Something else I did, this is a long time ago now, in the 1970s, was work in Strasbourg with the Council of Europe. I worked in the Press and Information Department as a kind of administrator, following the European Court of Human Rights, European Parliament, European Parliamentary Assembly, and helping to compile a press review every day.
So we start back from the sentence, something what I did in the Basque Country.
In the Basque Country, yeah. I was teaching English in the Basque Country in northern Spain. Now these three activities, the archaeology, the archaeological digs, the working with the Council of Europe and the teaching English in the Basque Country in Spain, in different ways, these pushed me towards philosophy. I'll say why in a moment. I should say one other thing. In the 1970s, I was quite interested in Buddhism, or Buddhism was becoming increasingly fashionable in the West, especially perhaps in England and in America, and I used to do Buddhist meditation. Now, during this period, I didn't know what philosophy was. I used to read a lot of French literature. I mean, I used to read the French literature in the original. I used to read a lot of Sartre, Camus, Malraux, Saint-Exupéry, de Beauvoir, all these people. I used to read it in the original. But
so
I'd never
existentialist, where you are.
They were more or less existentialist humanists. I mean, I used to read some people who, if you like, are more conservative. Claudel, Henri de Montalon, you could say they're more conservative. François Mauriac, he's more conservative Catholic. Some of them were more conservative, but of course, you know, a lot of them are at least liberal and maybe socialist. Sartre is some kind of Marxist. But I still didn't really know what philosophy was. But people told me that the things that the questions that I was raising were philosophical questions. For example, in the archaeology, I used to wonder how successful we were in reconstructing the lifestyle or the mentality of the Romans or the Celts. I mean, you might find a piece of pottery and there's a lion and maybe some waves or something. You think, yes, well, they know about lions, they know about waves, or do they really know about lions, or where did this come from?
Especially lions in UK.
Yeah, that's right. There are no lions in the UK, but it turns out that the pottery is imported from the Rhone Valley. There are no lions there either. But the potters or the designers have been in other provinces of the Roman Empire, say in Africa, which is very North Africa. Okay. So I was interested in this question about the mentality, or trying to reconstruct the mentality, and whether you would know whether you'd succeeded or failed. I mean, also in archaeology, you might be digging something with your trowel, and it might be snowing, in the north of England, and one supervisor might say, "Oh, that's good, priest. You found the oven which the Roman army would build in the back of the rampart of the fort." And another supervisor might say, "Oh, that's interesting, priest. Yes, you found the gatepost. We've been looking for that. Here's the hole in the wall. This must be the gate." Or somebody else would say, "Oh yes, well look, it's got stones. We know that Hadrian refaced the fort in stone, and so this must be the buttresses, the revetments, and so on." So this made me ask: is there truth? What is truth? Can you find truth? If there is truth here, what was it? And I thought, well, whatever the truth is, it's whatever the Romans did use it for, which might be one of these three, some of the three, all of the three, or none of the three. In reality, in archaeology, what they do is they have maps of Roman forts from Inverness in Scotland to Alexandria in Egypt, and they just look at the maps and decide whether this feature is more like this or like that on the map. So it's a kind of coherence, what we would call a coherence criterion for truth, rather than correspondence. The correspondence would be very hit or miss. So anyway, that was the archaeology. And then in the Basque country, there was a great deal of political violence when I was there. There were bombings and shootings and demonstrations, and I mean, at the time there was...
And they fought for independence, yes?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite complicated. There were 7 different kinds of ETA. There were Euro-communists. There were more or less Soviet-style communists. This was in 1976, right? 1976. There are anarchists. The anarchist tradition was very strong in Spain, at least probably since the 19th century, certainly since before the Civil War. So you've got this massive fragmentation of political attitude on what we would call the left and on what you've called the right. The right is also split between. I mean, for example, there were Basque people. I used to drink in a bar where there were Basque people who wanted independence from the Basque country, and they were very against being run from Madrid, from the newly restored Cortes. But they were fascists. They thought that Franco was wonderful. The only problem was that he was Spanish and not Basque. You see, they wanted a sort of Basque Franco. Yeah, that's what they wanted. That was a phrase, Basque Franco. And they had their bar. When I first arrived in the Basque country, I was told by an English person, an English woman who was leaving, "Be careful for the secret police," or "watch out for the secret police." And I said, the secret police, that's completely crazy. You think they have secret police here? You must be mad. Okay, well, by the time I left, I knew very well that they had the secret police. Very, very difficult people. Very, very difficult people. Las secretas, they call them. And anyway, the secret police and the off-duty Guardia Civil had another bar in the town. And you could
drink with fascists.
You could drink with Basque fascists or with Spanish fascists or fascist extreme nationalists. off-duty police who've got machine guns and stuff, right? Yeah.
Or wonderful free time.
Yeah. It was a real education for me because you saw politics being played out on the street, not just an opinion in the university or on television or something like that. And there were lots of incidents there that I was involved in. I was arrested. Well, I was never charged. I was taken to the police station. But one evening we were in a bar. I was there with two other English boys. We were only in our 20s, and we were with a Basque person who we knew, and he was putting up trade union stickers. Right, it would have been a Marxist trade union, not the CNT, a Marxist trade union sticker. And the bar began to empty. This was about 11 o'clock at night. And I thought, well, are the people leaving the bar because the bar is going to close? Or are people leaving the bar because they're afraid of that there's going to be violence because of putting these stickers up? And I noticed that the man behind the bar, the barman, was in the corridor making a telephone call. And I thought, is he going to call the Guardia Civil or something, or some terrorist organization? Anyway, the bar emptied except for the Basque chap and the three English. And a car arrived outside, one of those French deux chevaux old cars, you know, the ones I mean, you know, okay. And two men came from the car, and they'd got guns. And one was with a big black beard and a white Aran cardigan, you know, like in Ireland or in Scotland, they've got these cream thick cardigans. He's got his gun. And the other one had got denim jeans, a denim short jacket, and he'd got long blonde hair down here, like Led Zeppelin or something, right? But he'd got a gun as well. And they were both, and now we got no idea who these people were. I mean, there was a right-wing terrorist organization at that time called Los Guerreros del Cristo Rey, and they were Catholic fascists who were trying to shoot members of ETA in the back of the head, you know, and leave them by the roadside. So, you know, this was quite a disturbing situation. But these two people said identification. So the British, you know, gave these passports, but the Basque chap, the young Basque person, did not have any identification, and this was a crime really. You must carry this card at all times. He didn't have it. So then everybody was put into the car, into the 2CV, except me and the Led Zeppelin chap. Anyway, this was dark now, going up the street, and the Led Zeppelin chap had got a gun, and he was poking me in the back, right here, with this gun, making me walk up the street. And obviously I wanted to say, I'm English, or what are you doing? I don't mean any harm or something. But he would just say, shut up, you know, you're not allowed to speak at all. So at that moment, I didn't know whether we were all going to be shot or what. We didn't know what happened. But we got into, I was slightly reassured, not very reassured, but slightly reassured, when we turned into the square where the police commissariat is. And we were taken upstairs in the commissariat. And there was a room a bit bigger than this, and there was very little in the room, just one formica table, you know, the plastic 50s substance, the formica, with one man with a typewriter ready like that. And we were interrogated. The three English people were asked questions here, and the Basque was in the corner here, and somebody hit him. One of these police or secretos hit him, and he was in the corner. And then the room began to fill up with more and more police. some wearing Guardia Civil type uniforms, some in more or less camouflage army type outfits, and some just in civilian clothes. And every policeman who came into the room hit the Basque chap. Yeah, someone might hit him in the face, someone might kick him in the balls, someone might hit him in the stomach like that. And he just sank down in the corner, and he was crying, you know, he was sobbing. Anyway, this went on. I had to go to the table, and they said, you know, empty your pockets. So I emptied my pockets, and they found a card that I had, and this card said camera, or C-A-M-R-E. And so the policeman by the table said, you know, ¿Qué es eso? Comunista, anarchista, revolucionario, Marxista, and so on. Anarchista. So I said, no. Campaign for real ale beer in England, right? You know, English campaign for real beer, not global capitalist chemical beer, but local beer made in the place. Anyway, all these fascists suddenly went, you know, it was kind of, they did have a sense of humor after all. You know, they don't have much of a sense of humor, but they did laugh about that, and it diffused the situation. Didn't stop them hitting the chap in the corner, mind you. Anyway, then after a while, somebody, an officer came in, and I mean he looked like, he looked like some kind of Nazi. Do you have the film Where Eagles Dare with Burton and Eastwood? You know, the old 60s film with the Nazi villain. He looked like that. I mean, just ridiculous with medals and all this stuff. And this new policeman said, well, he was clearly embarrassed that we were English people and we'd been taken off, arrested, if you like, and we'd seen the Basque beaten up. So he started to say, he's a thief, as un ladrón. He kept using this word, thief. And so I went, oh, really? I had no idea, thief, you know. I wasn't about to argue with these people, not really. And then they let us go. They let us go. And I had not felt frightened during the whole episode. I felt no fear. But going down the staircase, going out of the building, my knees were crashing together like that, and I had to hold the stair rail going down the stairs.
You were so frightened.
Yeah, so I was. I mean, it was later I thought I would think this is very interesting. You can be very afraid. You can be very, very afraid, but you do not feel any fear. You do not feel any fear. Those things, two things can come apart. Like you could say, oh, I feel hungry. But no, you're not hungry. You know, people in Africa are hungry or something. You know, like being hungry and feeling hungry are not necessarily exactly the same thing. And it's the same with fear. That was a discovery for me.
And how did all this experience, after all, very practical, let's say, drove you to philosophy? Yeah,
I suppose, perhaps strangely, I'm not very interested in political philosophy. I'm more interested in metaphysical philosophy. But I think, with the man with the long hair and the gun, I was having practical thoughts. I thought, well, I wish I'd paid more attention in school to biology. I don't really know where my liver is or where my stomach is or my kidneys, and I don't know whether I really need those things if this gun goes off. But I suppose, my life could have ended then in 1976 when I was 22. It could have ended. When I worked in Strasbourg, interestingly, the first democratic election results came through the following year in 1977 from Reuters when I was working in the press and information department, and I found it quite moving, really, to see these democratic election results coming from Gipuzkoa and Vizcaya, these Basque provinces. I suppose what happened was I used to drink in bars with friends, and we used to discuss questions, back in England, and we discussed questions like, is there any absolute right or wrong, or is it just a matter of opinion whether you think it's okay to shoot at Franco's police or something? Is it just a matter of opinion, or is there something right about it or something wrong about it? So, and then they'd say, these are ethical questions, you should study philosophy. Or if you're trying to understand the mind of the Celts or the Romans, they'd say, well, you can do archaeology, but whether you can understand other people's minds is a philosophical question. Yeah, and also in the other thing, in Buddhist meditation, I don't know whether you've done much Buddhist meditation, but after a while, you can tell that there's something that does not change. Obviously in Buddhism, everything's changing all the while on one level, but I've met the Dalai Lama on more than one occasion. He comes to Oxford once every 10 years or something. And I once asked the Dalai Lama, is anything permanent? Is anything permanent? Because, in Buddhism, everything changes. Is anything permanent? And he said, no, nothing permanent, nothing permanent. But then I asked, what about now? The now. Is the now permanent? And the Dalai Lama turned to his translator, who was probably at that time Thupten Jinpa, I can't remember, one of his translators. And Thupten, or whoever it was, said, mumbled something to the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama said, yes, now permanent, now permanent. Yeah. So
this was your experience.
Yeah.
So what is philosophy in your opinion?
I think philosophy is the attempt to answer philosophical questions. Philosophy is not really a set of doctrines or opinions or theories or beliefs or anything like that. Philosophy is essentially an open set of questions, a very large set of questions. Now, this definition doesn't get us very far unless we know what makes a question philosophical. Now, I think a philosophical question is not necessarily a question we don't know the answer to. We might know the answer to a philosophical question. By a philosophical question, I mean a question where we have really no idea of what method to use to address the question. We don't know how to begin to approach the question or to begin answering the question. Now, I think that's all that philosophical questions have in common. Some philosophical questions are about numbers, some are about political violence, some are about consciousness, some are about fundamental physics and the nature of matter, if there is matter. Okay, so philosophy is odd in that it's a subject with no single subject matter, or it's an academic discipline where there's no one subject matter. I mean, we can contrast philosophy with other academic subjects. Say, history is the study of the past, essentially the study of the human past, everything human beings have done and everything that has been done to human beings up until now, whatever that means, right? Or geography is the study of life in space, or reality in space, or the earth in space, or something like that. Or sociology is the study of society, or mathematics is the study of numbers. All these subjects are defined by having some specialized subject matter, something that they try to explain. But I think philosophy is what is left, if you like, where we have
what
no
is
method.
origin?
Pardon?
Or what is origin? Or what
Yeah. Those would be good examples, I suppose. I mean, did everything begin? Did time begin? Did the universe begin? Was there a first event? Often these philosophical questions come in bunches, in clusters.
I wanted to say that not everything what is left from other science and studies, but because all of the other sciences, they grew up, they came out of philosophy. So at first it was those crazy Greeks who were studying the archaea and the universe, and then they started studying the human being.
I agree with you totally that the other subjects come out of philosophy. I think that's correct, and there's a reason for that. If I'm right in thinking that philosophy is the study of those questions which we have no method to address, then the pre-Socratic philosophers are trying to explain everything. They're trying to explain every question. But over the last 2,500 years, methods have been invented to address some questions. I mean, especially, I suppose, it begins with Aristotle. And so you've got biology and physics and poetics and so on, or ways in which you might be able to address the questions. So, I think there's a reason why what you just said is right. But if you say philosophy is everything that's left, once the other subjects have found their approaches, in a way left is ambiguous between a historical and a logical meaning. Historically, that's it's not quite right that they're left historic. Well, I suppose it is right. They still remain now, despite all these sciences. If you look at it logically, it means something like the methods of the sciences are not adequate, so far as we know, to answer philosophical questions. Something like that. We can't solve them by doing more maths or making more observations or doing more archaeology or finding documents or something like that. We don't know what methods are right.
Professor, so we put a point here. So now we know a little bit what a philosophical question is and how actually what events in your life happened for you to be a professional philosopher. And we wrap up this episode at this point. Stephen Priest, professor at Oxford, was our guest. I also thank you for watching, and I thank Polish National Foundation for making this video podcast possible. This is Common Sense Generation.